Springfield Talk 1041. Hey, everybody. Good Thursday morning. My name is Nick Reed. Got Author of the Week today, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. Christy Fulnecki will be joining us. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line is 447-KSGF. Tomorrow, Friday, kicking off the weekend, we will be broadcasting live from Scramblers. It'll be there as the doors open at 6 a.m., so you can come out and have some breakfast or lunch for breakfast if you want, or come later in the day, have breakfast for lunch or lunch for lunch. Whatever. Do what you want. Free country, and hopefully becoming even more free as we get closer and closer to the swearing in of Donald Trump. It's amazing what information you can learn if you look outside of the media here in the United States. And part of the problem with having a media that is motivated by their political ideology, or at the very least inherently biased, and it isn't always about framing particular stories in a manner that fits your ideology, but sometimes it's a matter of what are important stories, what doesn't get covered. And when you read much of the press and the media in other parts of the world, you know, they're obviously, while they are people that write the stories, they may have biases that are a bit different. Perhaps they don't really have any at all, or they do have some, but they are able to separate their personal bias from what they recognize as relevant information to their viewers, to their readers. And out of interest, I check these things out, and it is remarkable developments that are being reported in Ukraine, for example, that aren't getting much of a mention here. In fact, what should be in the context of Ukraine and Russia battling it out, lead story in the United States is the fact that Zelensky has gone to social media declaring that Trump, outside of China, there's only one individual that Putin fears, and that is Donald Trump. There is a lot of movement that is taking place that is signaling everyone understands that the beginning of the end, or at least a potential end, is unfolding because Donald Trump was elected president. You've got Poland speaking about the ceasefire that they see coming around the corner. You have Zelensky out there, social media, telling the Ukrainians that Trump is the only person that Putin fears. The European Union is discussing ways to cut off their reliance on energy from Russia. Now, you may recall this was a kerfuffle that occurred when Donald Trump was president the first time, and he openly criticized some of our European allies, specifically Angela Merkel of Germany at the time, for becoming reliant on Russian energy. And said, you guys have got to wean yourself off of this. Of course, that all went to the wayside. Those concerns went to the wayside when Biden became president. And now that Trump was elected, the EU is talking about what steps can we take. NATO countries are again talking about ways that they can increase their contribution to NATO. Something that, of course, Trump managed to facilitate the first time he was president. All of these things that the world benefited from with Trump as president of the United States that the Biden administration rolled back, whether it was by their own direct action or just because of a vacuum of any sort of leadership. Everyone is already behaving as if Trump is president of the United States. It's already paying off. The direct response to the Trump election in foreign policy implications is so much more stark than domestically, because domestically outside of executive orders, it's a little more difficult for Trump to make things happen. When you're talking about major policy, this is why it's such a big deal for Republicans to retain Congress and to grab the Senate, retain the House side, and then grab control of the Senate, because that's going to make it easier for Trump to get things done. Obviously not going to be a rubber stamp situation because of some of the establishment Republicans, but it is something that is going to make it easier. But there's still work that has to be done. I mean, just look at the nomination process, the difficulties, the roadblocks that some Republicans in the Senate have been throwing up regarding some of his nominees. But when it comes to a lot of the foreign policy stuff, that's direct Trump. That is Trump dealing with NATO. That is Trump dealing with the European Union. That is Trump dealing with Israel and Zelensky and Putin. And so, that's where you can see much more direct, much more results that are going to move much more quickly. And that's why already that stuff is happening. You want to talk about just what a huge difference the person in the White House can make when it comes to foreign policy stuff. And so much so that still weeks away from being sworn in, there is this understanding and recognition among world leaders that things are different now, and in a positive way. It's pretty remarkable stuff. I want to share with you a couple of stories. I alluded to this yesterday and did not end up having time to get to it. This ongoing, I don't know if one would want to call it a dumpster fire, perhaps in Fair Grove, this inability to keep and retain a police chief. They've gone through 4 police chiefs in as many years. And they have once again put the current police chief, Roy Howe, on administrative leave. Then you have the Greene County component in this with the sheriff, and we've got a couple of different stories from the news leader. And the initial story was included comment from Missouri Highway Patrol and from the Greene County Sheriff's Department that neither of them were involved in any way, shape, or form. Well, that changed with a subsequent story in which Sheriff Arnott was like, actually, I was involved in this, but the people in my department, they screwed up. There was I wouldn't say miscommunicate. There was incorrect information provided to the media about the level of involvement. Now, who's at fault here? Is it both parties? All I know, based off of what is put out there in the public, something is messed up. Whether it is to the point that it's very difficult to believe that there's no corruption going on here, whether it is coming from Greene County or Fair Grove, a little from both, but just the secrecy of all of this, and it is just such a complete and utter mess by all appearances. So I wanted to share with you a couple of those stories that the news leaders covered, and like I said, what has added to the real, I don't know if you want to call it intrigue, is the 180-degree turn from the Greene County Sheriff's Department as to their level of involvement in these latest developments. That coming up, weather as well. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll have sunny skies with a high near 57. Tonight, cloudy with a low around 36. For your Friday, mostly cloudy with a high near 53. And on Saturday, showers mainly before noon with a high near 56.
What, a week? Is it a week and a half until Christmas? Is that right? My goodness.
That doesn't sound right, but I think it might be.
I mean, it's the 12th, so we're talking, well, it's just, well, a couple weeks, I guess. Just almost, yeah.
Yeah, like a week and a half. My goodness, that does just not sound right.
No, it most certainly does not. Any sort of Christmas festivities. We do have the Christmas in the Ozarks. I know that my wife was talking about, oh, we should drive around and look at Christmas lights, and you know, you can, if you find yourself in the mood to want to enjoy some of the area Christmas festivities, we do have that Christmas in the Ozarks page at ksgf.com. Brought to you by our friends at Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. While you're over there at ksgf.com, you can also get registered. I'm guessing that tomorrow's probably the last date to do this. Win it before you can buy it. Tickets to see iconic and legendary Styx. Special guest Kevin Cronin of REO Speedwagon live at Thunder Ridge Nature Arena. That's going to be in June. And the tickets go on sale tomorrow at 10 a.m. You can register to win a pair at ksgf.com. A couple of different stories that are in the news leader that demonstrate this ongoing, you might consider it a dumpster fire because it's been going on so long and so consistency in Fair Grove with this inability to retain law enforcement there. You have what would appear to be the added, in the minds of some, problematic involvement of Greene County Sheriff's Department. And now we have in the media a 180-degree about face from the Sheriff's Department as to their level of involvement on this. Now, I'm just going to, I don't have any special insight, but I'm going to read to you from the two different news leader stories regarding the most recent developments. Headline, Fairgrove has had 4 police chiefs since 2020, with its newest now placed on leave. Fairgrove seems unable to shake troubles involving its police department. Last week, the head of the city's police force, who was hired less than 8 months ago, was placed on administrative leave. Mayor Thomas Voorhees confirmed the decision to place Chief Roy Howe on administrative leave, but did not comment on how long the leave would last nor the circumstances surrounding the decision, noting the sensitive nature of this personnel matter. Quote, I want to assure everyone that this decision was not made lightly, he said in a written statement. The Board of Aldermen has had extensive discussions with each other and our legal counsel, and we believe the course of action is in the best interest of the city. Now, of course, part of the problem in the public arena here with situations like this is the constant secrecy. And I recognize that at times there are arguments for, well, you know, for legal reasons, we got to keep this secret, that secret. But just this ongoing situation and these, you know, it gets presented fairly or unfairly, accurately or inaccurately as, you know, something that's pretty serious. I mean, extensive discussions and legal counsel and, oh, but by the way, we're not going to tell you why. The mayor and city clerk refused to provide the news leader with the board's vote to place Howell on leave, while the draft minutes of the December 3rd closed session meeting were shared. They did not include a motion or a vote on the administrative leave. According to the state sunshine law, quote, any vote on a final decision when taken by a public government body to hire, fire, promote, or discipline an employee of a public governmental body shall be made available with a record of how each member voted to the public within 72 hours of the close of the meeting where such actions occur, end quote. Sergeant Billy Deckard, hired by Howell back in May, according to the Fairgrove Department's Facebook page, is now acting chief during Howell's absence. Now, Howell was hired in March after the position was vacant since mid-December, and the department was left with only one fully trained officer following several resignations. Howell was the city's 4th police chief since mid-2020. The large turnover of police, combined with the community protest about a former Fairgrove school resource officer being decommissioned, brought what most local thought were changes in April's election. A write-in candidate, Kelly Petty, received more votes than a longtime incumbent, while Voorhees, who was endorsed by the former school resource officer, won the mayoral contest against Alderman Leon Betty. Howell was selected with more than 30 years of law enforcement experience after working as a park ranger in Springfield. Originally from Omaha, Nebraska, Howell spent almost 20 years at the Bellevue Police Department, where he assembled a cyber forensic lab from the ground up and worked with a canine who was the first in the Midwest trained to sniff out electronics. Since being hired, Howell emphasized transparency and open communication and posted regular updates on police happenings, hirings, and responses to concerns on Facebook. In April, the board approved new pay and benefits to aid in recruiting police officers, as well as a plan to update and secure the computer storage and network for the department, both of which were put together by Howell. Howell hired 4 full-time officers and a reserve officer. He also created a Police Citizens Advisory Committee, a volunteer body acting as a middle ground between the police and the community by helping organize community events and find solutions to complaints. Howell could not be reached for comment. State law, writes the news leader, lays out procedures for a chief law enforcement officer to be fully removed by a governing body. In order to do so, the body must have just cause, provide the chief an opportunity to be heard, and the board must find just cause to remove the chief by 2/3 majority vote. Just cause includes inability to perform duties to a mental condition, reckless disregard for the safety of the public or another officer, found to have violated any law that constitutes a felony, and has been deemed insubordinate or found to be in violation of a written established policy, among other reasons. Both Greene County Sheriff's Office and Missouri State Highway Patrol confirmed to the news leader that they are not involved in any investigation regarding the Fairgrove Police Department or how the news leader has requested records from the city of Fairgrove regarding any reports and investigation requests, but have yet to receive a response. Subsequent to that story was the following. This also the news leader. Greene County Sheriff's involvement in Fairgrove's chief's leave wasn't fully disclosed. Although the Greene County Sheriff's Office earlier said it had no involvement with the Fairgrove police chief being on administrative leave last week, Sheriff Jim Arnott did in fact consult with the Fairgrove Board of Aldermen on the situation. A story regarding the administrative leave situation was published by the news leader Tuesday morning, noting the sheriff's office was not involved in an investigation. This was in response to a news leader request under the state sunshine law for any complaints, reports, and requests for investigations regarding the Fairgrove Police Department and Police Chief Roy Howell. The response noted that there was no records to provide because the sheriff's office was not involved in any investigation. After the story was published, Arnott contacted the news leader to note the records department had, quote, messed up. He said Fairgrove Mayor Thomas Voorhees did submit a written request, specifically asking Arnott to consult with the board, which the sheriff admitted he did. The written request, shared with the news leader Tuesday afternoon and sent on November 8th by Voorhees, asked the Greene County Sheriff to investigate, quote, the issue regarding the camera as submitted by Attorney Holly Dodge. It clarifies that the board approved the purchase of the cameras. The city currently owns the video doorbell camera in question, and Howell had submitted the necessary documentation for payment related to the purchase October 8th. Now, this camera was a video doorbell installed at the police station, and a post that was shared on the Fairgrove Police Department Facebook page explained that it was both a security feature and to allow officers to still answer questions and be alerted to return back to the department when on duty. Arnott said that there was no official investigation, and the records request had not made it to Arnott himself. Thus, the written request was overlooked in the response. Arnott said his office was, quote, not trying to be deceptive, but rather hoping to leave comment on the situation to Fairgrove leaders. He said his staff was not aware that he was even reviewing the documents at the city's request and had joined them in a closed session meeting to answer questions. Howell, again, was placed on administrative leave earlier last week. Mayor Voorhees did not disclose how long the leave would last, nor the circumstances surrounding the decision, noting that, quote, sensitive nature of this personnel matter. Missouri State Highway Patrol confirmed to the news leader that it was not investigating the department or Howell. Under the Sunshine Law, any vote on a final decision regarding hiring, firing, promoting, or disciplining an employee is required to be available within 72 hours of the closed meeting. So far, Voorhees and the city clerk have refused to provide the voting record to the news leader. While the draft minutes of the December 3rd closed meeting were shared, they did not include a motion or a vote on the administrative leave. Sergeant Billy Deckard, hired by Howell in May, according to the Fairgrove's Facebook page, is acting chief during Howell's absence. Howell was hired in March after the position was vacant since mid-December, and the department was left with only one fully trained officer following several resignations. Howell was the city's fourth police chief since mid-2020. Whatever is the cause, whomever, and it could be more than one person, more than one entity, it is an absolute and utter mess. By all appearances, what is going on with the Greene County Sheriff's Department, with Fairgrove, whatever the reason, to, in as many years, lose 4 different police chiefs, then have another one without any explanation as to why, put on leave, have the sheriff's department saying we have no involvement in it, and then like 24 hours later, oh yes, actually we do, to the point that the sheriff was in closed doors meetings with this, having the city refuse to turn over certain information that, according to the news leader, is required by sunshine law request. What an absolute dumpster fire train wreck. Whether or not the people, the citizens, and I'm sure, like most, whether it be big city or small towns, there are people who know what's going on, and it's one of those situations in which the truth is whispered. There, people, discover who is out there talking about what's actually going on for fear of retribution at the hands of whomever. As the world turns in Fair Grove, Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. All right, we're going to throw it over to traffic here, get a check on the old weather. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 57. Tonight, cloudy with a low around 36. For your Friday, mostly cloudy with a high near 53. And on Saturday, showers mainly before noon with a high near 56.
After I read these two news leader stories, Fairgrove has had 4 police chiefs since 2020. Now it's newest placed on leave, and then followed up with Greene County Sheriff's involvement in Fairgrove chief's leave wasn't fully disclosed. And Sarah had made the comment, she goes, so best I can tell is this is over a Ring camera.
Yeah, like a $150
Right.
camera.
And so that comes from this portion of one of the stories, the written request shared with the news leader Tuesday afternoon and sent on November 8th by Mayor Voorhees, asked the Greene County Sheriff to investigate the issue regarding the camera as submitted by attorney Hal Dodge. It clarifies the board approved the purchase of a camera the city currently owns, the video doorbell camera in question, and how it submitted the necessary documentation for payment related to the purchase on October 8th. And this was a doorbell that, according to the police department's Facebook page, was installed at the police station, explaining it was both a security feature and to allow officers to still answer questions and be alerted to return back to the department when on duty.
So what's the deal here?
Well, and this is part of the problem with secrecy.
Do you think they caught something on the camera?
What that's just it. I mean, this is what. And listen, I understand that in some circumstances there is a need to keep things quiet and secret until an investigation is done. The problem with what is going on in Fairgrove is that it's just been, one thing after another, and it's just like this culture of secrecy. And when that happens, you cannot blame people for speculating and trying to figure out what's going on with their own city government. Oftentimes what happens is you get people that are very frustrated that are involved in the process, and they're like, well, people just don't know what they're talking about. Well, that's not really their fault. People are out there, they're just, they have no idea, they're spreading disinformation. They don't know what they're talking about. Well, number one, it is their government. People live in Fairgrove. This is their government. These are their elected people. These are, in some instances, their paid police chief. And I suppose, arguably, even for those outside of Fairgrove, but are residents of Greene County, it does involve them to the degree that the Greene County Sheriff has been involved. In whatever capacity, we don't know, because according to the news leader, the office said that they weren't involved, and then once the story was published, then you have the police chief saying, the sheriff then saying, actually, I was involved to the extent I was in closed-door meetings on this stuff. Which that then people, can infer either the department has no idea what it is that their sheriff is doing, or there's just a number of different avenues in which people, speculate. And again, you can't blame people, the citizens, for filling in the blanks when the blanks are deliberately created, whether they're warranted or not. I mean, even if there's a legitimate reason to hide from the citizens why it is you're doing what you're doing, you can't then blame the citizens for trying to figure out what's going on. That's what human beings do. Particularly, again, you can't really say it's none of their business because it is their government. To me, now, outside or no inside information, the city of Fairgrove should not have the sheriff involved in this at all. Particularly given his involvement to, whether it's an appropriate degree or not, with this constant overturning of police chiefs and the replacements of police chiefs and all of that. If you're going to have some sort of investigation, and it is regarding a police chief in which the again, this process that the sheriff has, to some capacity, whether it's just advisory or showing up at these council meetings or whatever, You know what helps? Even if the sheriff's not doing anything wrong whatsoever, do you know how you eliminate the appearance or the concerns that perhaps something is being done that is inappropriate? You have the Missouri Highway Patrol investigate something like this. This is why so often whenever there is any sort of internal investigation that's going to take place, or you have a municipality, you don't have law enforcement involved in investigating their own. You get somebody that is further out because it diminishes, you can't completely eliminate, but it diminishes the concerns people may have in terms of conflict of interest and so forth. And that doesn't mean that there is any sort of conflict of interest here. You got to have all parties that are perfectly, completely above board, and no one trying to put undue pressure on anyone else, and it's just as pure and clean as the driven snow. But you still, when you have different people so closely involved with one another, does he live in Fairgrove even?
I believe so.
And if that's a component to it, it just to me seems like a no-brainer that if you are going to have an investigation of a police chief, you don't call the sheriff who has been in some capacity involved in this process in order to do the investigation. And then when apparently the department didn't even know he was doing it, it just all can easily lead people to infer that things are not above board. And so you have the highway patrol come in and investigate something like this. Well, I know. I don't live in Fairgrove. I do live in Greene County. So I suppose, given that it involves an elected official that, of which I am a citizen, I have the right, if you want to say it, to speak up. I mean, anyone has the right to voice their opinion, but I don't know. A lot of this seems to be, you've got one of two things going on. Let's say that there is some corruption that is causing this constant turnover and the involvement of the sheriff, and that that's one whole different nest of hornets. The other possibility is that really there is nothing nobody's doing anything or nobody's trying to be unethical. These are just really good people, all parties involved, trying to figure out a mess of a situation, but you create a further one by involving the people that you involve instead of having an entity like the Missouri Highway Patrol step in. And that doesn't mean, by the way, that you wouldn't have conflicts in that either, but it's just the further out you get, the greater you diminish the appearance that there is a potential conflict of interest there. Coming up, I want to share some of the latest developments that are unfolding because of the election of Donald Trump that are positive for the world. And unfortunately, it's not news that you're going to really hear in the United States. You have to go, for example, the news in Ukraine, newsukraine.rbc, Ukrainian news. Obviously, they're going to cover a lot of stuff that isn't necessarily of interest here, but much of it involves the United States. It involves potential peace deal and the developments that have just been unfolding organically because Trump is about to be sworn in as president of the United States. A1 Custom Car Care, all of your car care needs coming up. What to keep in your vehicle this winter for potential safety reasons. Also, winter care tips, repairs for your vehicle. Saturday mornings, 10 a.m. right here on 104.1 KSGF with Dustin Atwood and our very own Sarah Myers. Zelensky says Putin fears only Trump as an individual, possibly China as a country. So this is an interesting headline that we're not hearing here in the United States. The Ukrainian president said he shared these words with Trump during a trilateral meeting in Paris organized by French President Emmanuel Macron. Now, I would venture, this is very significant. You think about what has been going on and the way it's been presented. Over the past several years, the war with Russia, Ukraine, how this was so significant if you did not support any and everything Zelensky wanted, Zelensky needed, you were essentially a puppet of Putin. That if Putin isn't stopped, if this thing is not stopped, it is World War III. That Putin would go on to other countries next. There was no end in sight. People being killed on both sides constantly. Uptick in aggression, constantly raising the bar. Now you have a trilateral meeting that took place in Paris between not the current president, but the upcoming president, Donald Trump, and the president of Ukraine, in which you have the Ukrainian president out there talking about the forward momentum here, and that he, and this is, Ukrainian press, made a posting on social media. This is Zelensky, quote, "I told President Trump that Putin fears only him, and perhaps China. And that's the truth. Only decisiveness can bring this war to a just end and ensure lasting peace." Now, let me tell you something. Those words are very specific, and they're very deliberate. Using the term decisiveness, because this isn't just some sort of meeting that he had. He is utilizing this in order to send a message about the change in direction based off of the new president, the incoming president of the United States. That term decisiveness is the most important element of that posting Zelensky made. Because this conflict has been wrought with indecisiveness. I mean, the entire trip from the beginning until this point, coming from the United States in particular, it's been pretty much rudderless. Which is, it's the opposite of the way that the administration has portrayed it, that, stronger than ever and, really putting Putin on notice. I mean, let's not forget, our message was the threat of sanctions was going to prevent the invasion from ever occurring. And it's every day wake up and just, this is play it by ear. Is how the United States and NATO, has led by the United States in certain capacities, has been involved in this. So when Zelensky comes out and says, listen, I told Trump that in terms of people, the only person that Putin fears is Trump, and that it is the decisiveness, only the decisiveness can bring this war to a just end and ensure lasting peace. The president emphasized that now America is capable of achieving extraordinary results to succeed in ending Russia's war against Ukraine. Unity is essential, specifically unity within the United States, Europe, and all those around the world who value security, strong positions, and peace guarantees. At the same time, ceasefire in Ukraine may start soon, according to the government of Poland. So what you have is this recognition by all of these individuals in these countries that are involved that things are changing and they're moving in the right direction. At the same time, what's the big problem that Trump has always had with NATO? The one in which he's like, hey, listen, if this doesn't happen, I don't even know why we're involved. And the left was running around constantly saying he's going to pull us out of NATO, because of funding, because of money. Now, Trump, for the very first time, his first term, got NATO to up its, not up their responsibility, but to start meeting their responsibility. There's a certain percentage of their GDP that these other NATO members are supposed to be providing, and they weren't doing it. And Trump, in his way, quote, encouraged them to do so, and they did so. Of course, things were different under Biden. New headline. Again, this is out of Ukraine. NATO to consider raising defense spending target to 3% of GDP. Gee, I wonder why they're doing that. And the other big problem that Trump had very publicly, not with NATO specifically, but the European Union, was what? Making itself reliant on energy from Russia. Headline, again, from Politico. EU's new energy chief vows to end Russian fuel ties for good. So once again, the world is responding in the way that Trump has said the world needs to respond to fix these problems. Dan Jorgensen making it now his main priority to craft a plan that will finally sever all European Union energy links with Russia. In his first interview since taking office as the EU's new energy secretary, he warned that the EU is faltering in its multi-year campaign to shun Russian fuel and needed a plan to get things back on track. The plan represents the next step in the EU's massive effort to change how it powers life for 450 million people after the invasion of Ukraine. The EU's relationship with Donald Trump's led United States will play into Jorgensen's energy work, given Europe leaned on the U.S. for LNG. As it pulled back from Russia, the U.S. is now the bloc's second largest gas supplier. Not even yet in office, and making profound progress towards a more peaceful and stable world. You want to talk about in ways you can demonstrate the difference in an election? This is it. All right, we got news in 60 seconds. Chrissy Fulnecki in the next hour. I'm Nick Reed. I want a great homeloan.com. You got home loan needs. Then you have the characters in their team right here in Springfield. I want a great homeloan.com. Even if you already, in your mind, have your go-to for that refinancing or any potential refinancing questions of the purchase of a new home, maybe a home for investment. What are you saying?
I'm sorry. Continue on. I
What
just got some news after this. Go
Oh,
ahead,
okay.
continue.
All right. Well, then you threw me off.
I'm
Now I don't
sorry.
know what to do. No, but before we, whatever the news, it better be good news now. It's all built up. Okay. So if you do have, like a lot of people do, you've gone to the same bank forever, the same credit union forever, this is where you have all your stuff. It never hurts to have a second opinion at all. Because one of three things will happen. You'll find that either they can actually get you a better deal, so that's great. It's not as good of a deal, so then you have peace of mind. Hey, my financial institution, they're really able to take care of me and do things that most others aren't. Or it's the same, and then you still have that emotional security of knowing, okay, I'm probably getting a pretty good deal. So it's win-win-win, no matter what the outcome is. No losing whatsoever, unless you don't get that second opinion and find out what it is that they can do for you. And it all starts at iwantagreathomeloan.com. All right, what is it?
Trump was just announced as Time's Person of the Year.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
I mean, how reasonably could he not? Let me tell you exactly. All right, so are we ready for this? This is how it's going to play out. Now, you're going to have, obviously, some people on the left that are, but they're going to say, well, I mean, Time made Hitler Man of the Year once, so it makes sense. That's what they'll say.
This is what they wrote. From marshaling a comeback of historic proportions for driving a once-in-a-generation political realignment for reshaping the American presidency and altering America's role in the world to surviving two assassination attempts, Donald Trump is Time's 2024 Person of the Year.
Okay, you know what? I think is that Time's statement?
That was their official statement.
Okay.
Wow.
I think that's pretty good and straightforward.
And Time has changed, not just the magazine, but
Shoot, clever
Times.
this morning.
I'm very clever. But we are part of the cool kids now.
Yeah.
These the
We
outsiders,
always were. It's
the
just now we
outcasts.
got the recognition.
We're all the cool kids.
Stand up, respect, yo.
We used to be the stepchildren
Yeah.
of the political system, and now we're the popular ones, right?
Yes, we went hard. Show all of you. The audio video club is in charge of Senior Hall.
I don't even know what that means.
Oh, probably because you were popular.
Oh, that's fine.
Were you popular in high school?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
So
Well, that's why you don't.
I mean, I'm just
talking about-
honest. But of course, why would he not be the Person of the Year? I mean, it's incredible what he did. So, I mean, if anybody says, now, why would he be the Person of the Year, and why is he going to be on the front of magazines?
Michelle texted in, we are so back, Daddy's home. Daddy's home. Oh.
I love that. We were so back. It's
Ooh.
awesome. And we had George Trump dance while I'm here. I know.
I still
Yes.
liked, somebody had texted in and called it the Trump pump, and I just really liked that because it rhymed.
Oh, okay.
And he
Well,
pumps
you
his
can call it
arms.
whatever you
No,
want.
Trump dance clearly won. I mean, that's what
Yeah.
everyone calls it. So, you see, was it George Strait did it at a
Oh,
concert?
I saw that.
Yeah, I didn't see
that.
it, but I saw a story about it.
So, anyway,
The great thing about the Trump dance is anyone can do it.
that's right.
You know, like a lot of dances, you do like, you shouldn't do that. You know, anyone can do the Trump dance.
Families that did over Thanksgiving.
No.
There's all these families that did it, like grandkids and
Yeah.
grandparents, and there's a whole lot of them that did it and filmed it and put it on social media. I thought it was great. Or video, whatever. I'm showing my age, whatever you call it.
We got Christy Fulnecki here, and we're going to get weather in a moment. First, latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Colorton Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll have sunny skies with a high near 57. Tonight cloudy with a low around 36. For your Friday, mostly cloudy with a high near 53. And on Saturday, showers mainly before noon with a high near 56.
Hey everyone, it's Chrissy
Oh,
Fulnacki.
good morning. Good morning. Yes, and
Yes,
we
what?
just want to. We were talking about Trump being popular. We were talking
Yeah.
about you not being popular, but then
Yeah.
we were talking about Trump being popular before that.
Yeah.
But you notice how many people are, which I would never think that would be cozying up to Trump. Whitmer from Michigan and Hoodie Guy.
Oh, yeah.
Hoodie Guy is now starting to be.
Oh, Fetterman.
Yeah, Fetterman.
Yeah, all these people, again, it's just amazing how Hitler has become popular again.
That's
Trump brought Hitler back. These people that talked about democracy, dictatorship, Hitler, they're like, yeah, Whitmer's like, oh no, Trump, he loves Michigan. We'll be able to work together. He loves the people of Michigan. You wonder, Democrat voters, do you not realize that this is the toxic relationship you have with your party? Now, I'm not saying you have to change your ideology and your belief about role of government in people's lives and everything, but when your party is telling you these horrific, awful things that are going to happen and that Trump is the worst person in the world, and then it's like, oh, never mind, he'll be fine. Do you not see what a toxic relationship this is?
And to think, I think with the people that are moving over, the liberals from the Democratic Party, those I think are the ones that have common sense. But still, the people that remain in the party, you think, when you hear Obama and these other people saying that, oh, Trump's going to weaponize DOJ, what are you talking about? I mean, the things that you're accusing him of, those are the things that you're doing. And like, you destroyed so many people's lives during Biden's administration. And, people keep talking about J6. I mean, you destroyed. I was talking to one of my clients yesterday, and they're excited about the upcoming pardons, but you destroyed their family's life. Like, his wife, every time, I mean, he's still on house arrest, but every time somebody comes to the door, she has a breakdown. I mean, it's just terrible what they've done in people's lives. And so, I mean, you wonder, how can someone stick with that party after everything that they've done?
Right.
I mean, they're just so evil. But, if you don't think that leadership matters, look at a guy that is in power that literally doesn't, he's not even in power yet and doesn't even do anything. And how much change has he made just for him?
I remember, it's so funny
being
because
in that position.
When Obama was running, he did an interview when he was running for the first time that he believed that his just being elected, if he were elected, this was before he was elected, he believed that would be such an inspiration to the world that that by itself would lead to the beginnings of peace in the Middle East. And I remember thinking, what a narcissistic piece of crap. And of course, what he predicted didn't happen. The opposite happened. But here, Trump, it actually, like, now it's based off of what he did the first term. So there, it's not just, oh, we're inspired and we hope. It's based off meaningful results that they've seen in the past. But I think it's funny that Obama once declared what he, was hoping to be his election that would come to be as something that would lead to peace in the Middle East, which, of course, the opposite happened. But with Trump, that actually is occurring.
Yeah, and, I don't know if we're going to ever see anyone, I mean, at least in our lifetime, like Trump. I mean, he's a mythical creature. I mean, he is somebody that defies all the odds. I mean, obviously, I said last week, God is with him. I think that's very true. But, I mean, to beat all of this and still come out, and he's so clear, I mean, when he said there'll be hell to pay regarding, the hostages, the Israeli and American hostages, I mean, he's a very clear communicator. And I just thought it was awesome when he met the French president. He's walking out, and all these people are basically like bowing to him.
Yeah, it's like,
I'm scared of you. I'm scared of you.
Well, I think they're just glad that they don't have to be caretaker, take turns. Like they did. I mean, when Biden's over there, they literally took turns. All right, whose turn is it to watch him? And to make sure that he's, where he needs to be. And we know this because they've acknowledged that, once he decided, or he was forced out and that election was overturned by the Democrats, all of a sudden you began to hear from these different world leaders and like, we knew we had to watch him. That one event in particular when the president of, was it Italy? I think they got
wasn't it Germany?
Well, there
was started walking off.
Maybe there was a rotation of people. That was part of one of the articles about how they had to take turns being his caretaker. And you go from that to Trump. And what's hilarious is that the fact that the media and the Democrats tried to convince us that, well, their age is about the same. Trump's no different mentally. But like, oh, okay. Yeah, you can't tell a difference between the two at all.
My favorite picture of the week was Jill Biden looking at him.
Oh, what was that about? I know. I do. I think she's thinking, I need to get out of this Joe Biden marriage and see if I can. Like, hey, Trump's been married a couple times. He's known to drop a wife. I mean, she was looking at him like, maybe I can.
It was that. And then the funny thing is, he's using that to market some kind of cologne.
Yeah, it's cologne and perfume line.
I mean, that is hilarious. But just to see those leaders, I mean, and the thing that makes me mad, I can't imagine everything that we're finally going to hear from, not from the mainstream media, but these other outlets that they're going to uncover that have been going on. I mean, you never hear anybody. One of the moms of the American hostages from the October event last year has been on Glenn Beck so many times. Right. You never hear her speak. And then she actually wears a number of days that I think it's her son has been a hostage. And you never hear anything about those hostages. They're American hostages. Yeah. So, I mean, I know.
And
all he has to do that there's going to be hell to pay. Oh, Okay, I think we might. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if those hostages come back.
Uh, already,
Sorry, I don't
already
know what
seeing the
you're
winning.
talking
Already seeing the winning.
about. Every
Winning,
day.
winning. Trump dance.
Um.
There needs to be a winning dance.
Oh yes.
I mean, it's probably just the exact same as the Trump dance.
No. But who are we going to make fun of? Well, we always have the liberals make fun of because they're going to be completely melting down the whole time.
Well, we'll talk about Elizabeth
Oh.
Warren is, quote, walking back her comments that in regarding the murder of CEOs, that you can, I mean, I don't agree with it, but you can only push people so far.
Oh
That's
my
what she said.
gosh. I did not know she said
Oh
that.
yeah. Well, her walk back comment is hilarious. So we'll share that coming up here with Christy Fulnecki. I'm Nick Reed. Christy Fulnecki with us.
Good morning.
So Elizabeth Warren, she was on.
And by the way,
She is.
yes,
She is.
we have that in common.
She warned you can only push people so far whenever it came to the murder of CEOs. This was comments that she made on MSNBC. And this is how the left always they give themselves their "that's not what I meant" card. Is they start with violence is never the answer, but
Yeah,
you can only push people so far. Then they start taking matters into their own hands. So
that's disgraceful.
she clarified her remarks on Wednesday, according to the Huffington Post, saying, violence is never the answer, period. I should have been more clearer than there is never a justification for murder. And I'm thinking to myself, you ought to do a real look in the mirror if you recognize that people were unclear about your position as to whether or not it was okay to murder CEOs.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
if you recognize, hey, that's on me, I wasn't that clear on it. Do you think maybe you're not like I don't know, a good person? At least she recognizes that she's unclear in whether or not you should murder CEOs.
But really, she's not unclear because the first instinct of any Democrat, that's usually what they think.
Right.
It's usually the truth. So just like Kamala saying to get out of the rally when they made the Jesus comment,
But
their first comment is always what they think.
Well, and they, like I said, they use that opening Well, now I'm not saying violence is the answer, or let's be clear, it's not the answer, but here, let's talk about why it's justified, how awful the people are who do it. These comments that the left are making about, I'm not saying that I support it, but it's like when OJ wrote that book, I didn't do it, but if I did, here's exactly how I would have done it. It's exactly the same thing. He's like, now, I didn't kill my wife, but if I did, let me tell you exactly how I would have done it. That's the same thing as all of these people saying, I'm not saying it's okay to kill a CEO of a company, but, if you do it, you got to understand that all of the reasons why, because people are really mad.
Well, she agrees with it. I mean, this Ivy League punk, I mean, this is why that we had 2 Trump assassinations, because of comments and it's and what they and I know what she thinks is, oh, well, here's this, educated child that thinks, has this higher level of thinking and is trying to set the record straight. I'm sure that they justify this.
Well, but this is the exact same layout, essentially, of the Bernie Sanders campaign volunteer, but he targeted, because the scorn was Republican lawmakers.
Yeah.
Republican lawmakers are awful and horrible, and Republican lawmakers are going to take away your health care. Republican lawmakers are going to kill you off because they're going to deny you this. And so the followers of these people believe that stuff.
Yeah.
So what does he do? He goes out and he tries to kill as many Republicans as possible. This isn't a secret. I mean, he had a list of them. He said what he was going to do. I mean, this was all, and this is the same thing. And they're always repeating the rhetoric of the left every time that you have one of these people that try to kill someone. And then the left's like, well, now you can't blame me because I said violence. Yes, we know what you said. But then you also spent the next 99% of your comment fueling the fire for these people.
Yeah, and they're not condemning it. I'm sure not one time did she condemn it. And then she's inspiring other, brats to go out there and do the same thing.
The left is going to try and use this in order to push us into full-blown socialized medicine. That's what they're going to do. And that's
not going to happen.
You think about the similarities between how they. So you have a lot of. Here's what happens. You have somebody like Elizabeth Warren or Karine Jean-Pierre. She, from the White House. She's like, hey, violence is never the answer to deal with corporate greed. That's what she said. So it's like, okay, here we're condemning this, but now we have to validate their reasons for doing it. Corporate greed. You can only push people so far. So they validate it, and then what they do is they shift the conversation to, well, why did they do it? It's because these people are real bad. So then all of a sudden you have people, and this is the banality of evil, that are like, well, gosh, these people are actually pretty bad. I mean, I'm not saying they should be killed either. This is if you want a real life snapshot of how it was, that otherwise just normal, average, everyday Germans became okay with what was being done in their country. This is it, because they were otherwise normal people. And that became individuals like, well, listen, I'm not saying that the Jews should be killed, but they are responsible for a lot of the economic conditions. Yes.
Yeah.
And so then they are less likely to stand up and say it's wrong. So if you are a person, I'm not saying you're a Nazi, but if you're somebody that finds yourself going, well, I mean, yeah, I guess I don't agree with it. That is how you had a country filled with normal people in Germany that walked by concentration camps every single day knowing what was going on. They didn't necessarily support it, but they could understand because, the Jews were responsible for a lot of the economic problems in their country.
She just needs to
That's how it happens.
Elizabeth Warren needs to go away. I mean, how do you justify shooting someone at point blank range? I mean, there's no justification. I mean, the whole entire thing is outrageous. And you know what? I just can't wait until the Redskins come back with the logo, because they're getting ready to do it to go back to Redskins.
Yeah, I know.
And then, that'll be.
What Elizabeth Warren needs to be asked in a situation, what somebody should say to her is, there are a lot of people out there, and I'm one of them, that are furious because of Obamacare. People like her were out there claiming you
Yeah,
could keep your
yeah.
doctor, you could keep your insurance. Wait times in the emergency room were going to go down. The wait time to go and see your doctor was going to go down.
Looking up. Yeah.
Thing, your premiums were going to go down. All that was going to go down. So you can only push people so far as in the context of assassinating people involved. Does that apply to her?
Yeah,
Can
yeah.
somebody assassinate her because they were, quote, pushed too far because of Obamacare or any of the other legislation she pushes?
Yeah.
I mean, you can apply that to anything.
Yeah, well, I mean, she didn't think that through clearly. But I mean, she's straight up crazy anyway.
She is.
So, but they inspire
She makes
these
some
young
good
kids
powwow
that,
chow.
Yeah.
That was
But
her.
you've got to be a little bit off if powwow chow.
That was her recipe she submitted falsely as a Native American to the recipe book, powwow chow.
But wasn't she? We were talking about this one day. Wasn't she the one that was trying to drink a beer on the video?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
She pretended like, hey, why don't you grab me one of those beers over there to her husband. She's just so disgusting, so fake. And she can word it in a way that allows her to deny it, but she is encouraging people to go out and murder CEOs.
Well, I hope with the whole change in the culture now that people like her will be ostracized, and that
Should be.
Yeah, I mean, you can already see the wokeness going away. I mean, people are taking a knee now. They're doing the Trump dance in sports. So I mean, you see things that are already changing even before Trump takes office. So maybe these people, they'll as wokeness dies, maybe these people will too.
The point that was being made earlier, someone had texted, and you can only push people so far with socialized medicine. Isn't that the same argument the liberals are making?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and that is a point that is being made in order to illustrate truth through rational facts and arguments. The problem is the left, they don't care about that stuff.
Yeah.
It's all power to them. It doesn't matter. They are allowed to take those positions. No one else is. Only people who agree with them.
Yeah.
Christy Fulnecki with us. Traffic update. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 57. Tonight, cloudy with a low around 36. For your Friday, mostly cloudy with a high near 53. And on Saturday, showers mainly before noon with a high near 56.
Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Emily says Megan is who you want on your team. After working with, or while working with Emily, we had 5 offers before we finally won a bidding war. We put in 5 offers. At one point, we almost gave up due to the market, but Emily was consistent, persistent, had all the right answers. We bought a home that needed some updating, and her vision actually inspired one of our projects that turned out amazing. Not only is she kind and fun, she's knowledgeable, works crazy hours to meet your needs, and she's honest. She pointed out things along the way that we didn't think of. Thank you, Emily. Oh, and she sold her previous home, held an open house on day 1 of the listing during a snowstorm, and we had our first offer 4 hours later for more than the asking price. That's what you get with Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty.
Yes.
You wanted to chat about Daniel Penny.
Yes. I mean, this whole entire case is totally crazy. But, I mean, what kind of precedent does it set when you... I remember in law school when we talked about Good Samaritans and we had cases that someday, you know, there's always the liability and the risk when you're a Good Samaritan of, you know, being sued. Now, we never really talked about being prosecuted, but at least sued civilly. And now you have precedent for prosecutors to go after Good Samaritans. I mean, this whole entire thing is insane.
The outcome thus far criminally was what it should have been.
Right.
However, I do not feel comfortable labeling this as justice was served, because while the end was how it should have never even gotten to that point. It is not a just system when somebody who is clearly stepping in, putting his life at risk to save other lives, has to spend 4 years of his life going through a trial, the amount of money that's spent, the way that he is targeted, the way that he is characterized by the media so often, having that reputation completely, or an attempt to destroy it. And now, because of it, of course, this deadbeat dad that was never involved in any meaningful way in the life of his son, who would die while trying to kill those people, is, you know, he's facing a civil lawsuit with that. And I mean, it's just that is not right.
But people think that this
just.
is isolated to New York. It is not. This goes on all over the place. And I have a couple of cases, one current, one previous, where you have in this community, it's not here, it's somewhere else, prosecutors that have brought these like crazy indictments, whether it be grand jury, which I'm sorry, but the grand jury is terrible because when you're a defendant, you have no input into there. But that have brought these charges that half the time don't make sense or don't even cite the statute correctly. And then in another one, it was involving, a child running away and then the parents being prosecuted for trying to save the child from being abused from the other parent. So, I mean, you have like these crazy things that prosecutors go after him. And you know what? I mean, I think Alan Dershowitz alluded to this the other day. I don't remember where it was, but I really, and I think there's going to be a few people that listen to me that I am in court with, including judges, but I really think that the immunity for prosecutors and judges should go away. You should be able to sue prosecutors, judges, and guardian ad litems. I mean, that's the only way that this is going to stop. But Bragg, I mean, he should be able to be sued for what he did.
Yeah, there's got to be some, because it's just the problem is innocent victims are the ones that get punished, and
right.
and the process becomes the punishment. That's part of this too. Whether it's Trump or Daniel Penny or Kyle Rittenhouse or so many other non-high profile cases. And I understand the significance and the benefit of allowing pleas to occur. But what you also get, and this is why federal cases have such a high success rate, is because they'll come in and overcharge you and then agree,
Yeah.
okay, well, if you plead to something less, then, well, you won't get the death penalty. Or, well, you're facing 20 to life, but if you plead to this, you only get 10 years. And so a lot of times, I know everyone says when they're not in that situation, well, I would never plead guilty to something I didn't do. Well, if you have a family, you have kids or, a pregnant wife, and you think, well, okay, I can either go to prison for something I didn't do, but at least be able to be part of my child's life after she's 10 years old, or I'm going to be in here potentially the rest of my life. You can see how, as a person, you have no choice many times in your own mind. And so the way that the government uses the threat of throwing you in prison for the rest of your life in order to just give you no choice but to plead guilty to some, that's not right.
Yeah, and the unequal application of the punishment. I mean, I have this one case of it's this employee that got caught up with this city council fight, and I mean, they're wanting to put her in jail for it's just some election interference thing. But, and then you sit in the cases before you and you see, drug dealers, people that have murdered,
Oh, yeah,
they
I
go
know.
free or they go,
Right.
they have bond. And you're like, wait a minute, my client is being charged with this that has a higher punishment than this person that did something, worse than what they did. And that happens so much. So I know just, in my practice, if I'm seeing it, that other people see it. It's just like the same thing with the January 6th. Like I had said a couple times that the case that I had brought up about the pro-Palestinian guy that ended up punching the police officer that, burned the police cars in D.C., then that guy got 48 hours of community service. Meanwhile, people that didn't even do that, didn't even actually physically punch, were getting 7, 10, 12 years, in prison.
Oh, sure.
And so, I mean, it's not fair at all. And it's unconstitutional. But, I mean, what are you going to do about it? People have to file a suit and everything.
We got Christy Fulnecki with us. Coming up, Caitlin Clark, the Time Athlete of the Year. Do you follow any of that
Yeah, I saw
whatsoever?
that.
And then the white privilege thing. Did you hear
Oh,
about that?
no, I didn't hear that.
So I want to talk about that
Okay.
also. So we've got
Okay.
that coming up. I'm Nick Reed. Christy Fulnecki is with us. Indiana Fever superstar Caitlin Clark, Time Magazine's Athlete of the Year, which I can't imagine anyone else that would have been chosen for that.
You gotta turn it on.
So now she's making additional headlines because she had said, and I guess it's part of that piece, I want to say I've earned every single thing, but as a white person, there is privilege. A lot of these players in the league, they've been really good, and they have been black players. The league is kind of built on them. The more we can appreciate that, highlight that, talk about that, and continue to have brands and companies invest in those players that have made this league incredible, I think it's very important. I have to continue to try to change that. The more we can elevate black women, that's going to be a beautiful thing. Now, to me, and it's so, it is this contradiction, because on one hand, there's like white splaining and mansplaining, and you have this narrative when it comes to the oftentimes activists, political activists for the black cause that recoil at the idea that they need the white man for anything.
Yeah.
But then white people are required to say, we're going to lift you up. White people like Caitlin Clark, they're celebrated for saying, oh, well, no, yeah, I earned everything I got, but I am white, so that means I'm privileged, so I need to focus on black people and lifting them up.
That's
so
insulting.
Well, you would think.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's the way it's presented. It's part of the problem with the left is they're a contradiction constantly.
Yeah, right, yeah.
But so she gets criticism for this, obviously. Editorial Daily Caller, Caitlin Clark bows down to wokeness with ridiculously ignorant statement about white people. But here's what I think really needs to happen. And I think Caitlin Clark, knowing her as well as I do,
Yeah.
I suspect she's not a left-wing activist. I don't think that she is somebody that, I think that she is in this environment, and the left has been so successful at creating this division in the races about and demonizing white people as being privileged, that it is just accepted without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
By people like Caitlin Clark. I mean, she was in a university. You know, that's just, it's sort of like, oh, that's just a fact.
Yeah.
And saying anything otherwise is like saying that the earth is flat. But what we need to start doing is, it's a cliche to say, quote, start having conversations. Because what I would like is for Caitlin Clark to explain that. When you say, as a white person, you have privilege, like how? Now, of course,
Yeah, right.
now I think what oftentimes the regurgitated answer is going to be is, well, because of our history of this and that, slavery. Okay, but I understand the history, but connect the dots for me.
It's being in sports. If any area or industry or whatever, if you will, is based on ability, it's sports. So how are you gonna say that somebody is not playing based on race? That's one area that it's based on your ability.
But we just don't require people to explain their conclusions any
Yeah,
longer.
right.
We don't, and you can't simply say, well, because this country was built off, slavery. All right, well, let's just say that's true. How does that today mean? That in what ways? Give me scenarios, actual scenarios in which you have a white person and a black person, and something is like provided systemically to the white person that isn't the black person. You could argue, I mean, if you talking about that approach, that it's the other way around. I mean, what is the one race that can't have scholarships just for their race? What is the one race that can't have fraternities or organizations that are just for their race?
Yeah.
What is the one race that there are certain words, just words, that everybody else can say but you can't? And
Yeah.
if you do, you will lose your job and you'll be ostracized. I mean, you look at, there's one race in this country that has all of these rules on them, all of these stipulations that you can't quote appropriate other people's cultures. You can't wear your hair this way because that's not your race. You can't talk this way. You can't wear this jewelry. You can't like this music. And we're told, though, that is the privileged race in this country. Because
so give me an example of what you're
yeah.
talking about.
And that's what we need to require. I mean, if we really want to be enlightened, and if we're going to allow people to continue with this white privilege stuff, to connect those dots and to explain in meaningful, actual ways how it is that white people have these specific advantages over other people.
Yeah.
And maybe they're there, but the problem is no one ever explains
Well,
them, so we don't know what they are.
Are they keeping people, minorities from being on, collegiate and professional sports teams? I don't think so. I mean, look at the groups that are playing sports and how diverse it is. I mean, my daughter's tennis team at Oklahoma, I think she might be the only, well, we're Indian, but she might be the only American. There might be there's one other American. I mean, it's a melting pot in sports. So, what are you going to point to show white privilege? I mean, that infuriates me. And I think that's what I mentioned earlier. That's why you're seeing, I think, people are so sick of wokeness. Right. And sports is such a big thing in America, especially coming out of football season or in football season at the end of it, that you see this and people are tired of it. That's why these players are tired of shoving this wokeness down, and this whole
and let's
stuff
be honest,
that was started by
wokeness is the racism. I mean, that's where the racism
That's right.
is.
That's right.
Where you just declare because you are this color, you are privileged. Because you are that's where the true racism is.
Yeah,
DEI, CRT, wokeness.
And players are like, they're part of a team. They don't want to be, separated out. The whole point of being on a team is that you're playing together. You're not pulled apart individually. And so, I mean, of course you're going to see people out there dance and do the Trump dance and everything. And you hear in stadiums people chanting USA and singing all these songs.
It's racist.
I know, that's right.
It's racism. A couple more moments with Christy Fulnecki coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Christy Fulnecki, there's a story.
Yes.
Mark Zuckerberg is donating.
He's becoming friends too with Trump.
Yeah, well, that's the story. He's kicked in $1 million to Trump's inaugural fund.
Oh, Mark, you're so nice. You're so nice.
These people are just so disgusting. I mean, listen, if I'm Trump, I'm like, yeah, fine, go ahead.
Such a class act. He's like welcoming all his enemies.
These people are just so transparently immoral. I 1 minute rigging an election to now you're in the White House. Here's $1 million to celebrate it's just.
But it's so funny when Trump was on Gutfeld. Did you ever watch that?
Yes.
And when he said, why are you talking? I don't remember who they were talking about to so and so. You're talking to all these people that hated you, and he's like, well, I wouldn't have anybody to talk to if I didn't talk to my enemies. Did
you see the Gutfeld show where he called in? He called Greg Gutfeld.
I don't know if I saw
There was an episode. It was before that. Got to tell it here in 30 seconds.
Oh, okay.
And Fox News was covering Trump at a live event. Well, then at the top of the hour, it was his show was coming on, so it came on, and Gutfeld immediately, he's like, "I want Trump people tell him it was not my fault. I have no control over his speech being cut off." During the commercial break, he called
my gosh.
Gutfeld,
Oh,
and
that's
Gutfeld
so-
was laughing when they came back. He goes, "I'm on the phone with Trump," and Trump was giving him a hard time about it. Yeah, it was really funny. 15 seconds.
Go Navy, beat Army. So
Okay.
I'm gonna get to see my daughter on TV, I think.
All right.
So, yes.
Boom. Boom.
Trump dance.
doing
The
the
Trump-
Trump
The
dance.
Trump pump.
Trump pump. Yeah, he needs to be as the 6th member of the Village People. We need to have a Donald Trump guy. Springfield's Talk 1041. My name is Nick Reed. I'd like to welcome you to the show. We've got Author of the Week coming up. Ooh, a local author. Has to do with an unsolved mystery. Maybe you, in fact, may have some answers as they're being sought by the daughter of a murder victim here in the Springfield area that's gone unsolved for some time. So we will be talking with her coming up here. And, of course, Author of the Week, always sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone, just south of Kearney. Hey, don't forget, Grizzly Industrial. I've been talking about them as they become new partners, and what a great time. December, they have some of the best deals. Over 600 machines on display. If you are into woodworking, if you are into metalworking, it is the largest woodworking and metalworking showroom in the world. Over 35,000 square feet of machines on display, and that's right here in Springfield, South Kansas Expressway in Battlefield. And somebody had yesterday texted in, it is a great place as you're thinking about gift ideas. They have different books on woodworking, and so whether it's for yourself or maybe you have somebody that is a hobby, does woodworking, it's a great place to pick up that sort of gift as well. They have color catalogs. You can go in 0% financing and scratch and dent items up to 60% off. Again, though, December, some of the best deals you'll find. Grizzly Industrial right here in Springfield, South Kansas Expressway and Battlefield. Stress, it is open to the public. It's one of those facilities. It's a landmark, but people just think because of the size of it that it must not be open to the public. Indeed, it is. Weather in a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 57. Tonight, cloudy with a low around 36. For your Friday, mostly cloudy with a high near 53. And on Saturday, showers mainly before noon with a high near 56.
I'm Nick Reed. It's Thursday, which of course means it's time for Author of the Week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. Our author today, Tricia Miller, and the book is All That I Am, A Daughter's Take on the Frank Stanton Cold Case, which is a case many people in the area may be familiar with. I thank you for being with us this morning. Before we talk about the case itself, I'm curious to know what prompted you to write the book in the first place.
Well, I can say that, it's been a long journey, right? As it's going on 32 years now that my dad has, his case has been cold. And we don't want it to be forgotten. We want to keep it in the public's eye. We want to share his story as much as we can. And recently retiring as an educator, I found myself with time and desire to honor my dad in this way. And also it's writing a book is self-therapy, right? For some people. So I can say that it was absolutely self-therapy for myself.
So let's start off then with the case itself. Tell us about that day so many years ago.
So my dad, on June the 10th, 1993, around 4:30 in the morning, was on his way to work for the Springfield Leader newspaper. He was a news carrier. He delivered papers as a side hustle, and he was on his way to work. It was a pleasant morning in June, early June. He had his window down. He was smoking an early morning cigarette, enjoying the mild temperatures on his way to work. And as he's passing through an intersection right there on East Republic Road, he was shot. And about 30 minutes later, an officer that was off duty actually came by the area and found him in his truck.
Yeah, so that early in the morning, probably not a lot of traffic, particularly back. I'm not sure what intersection on Republic Road, but I know it's not. Back then, it wasn't nearly as populated as it is today. What of the? So do they know? Was it like a close up? Was it somebody shot far away? What is it that they suspect?
So in my book, All That I Am, I share the full autopsy report, and I also have maps where you can see where it was the intersection of Fremont and East Republic. And yes, back then in 1993, it wasn't the hustle bustle area that it is now, right? It was a very quiet area. And so in the autopsy report, the coroner describes it as a distant shot. However, when you look at his evidence for saying that, it really is more about him saying that it wasn't a close-up shot. When he says distance, it could be 10 feet, it could be 100 yards, right? So we don't know exactly the distance, but it was not a close-up shot.
We're talking with Tricia Miller, author of All That I Am, A Daughter's Take on the Frank Stanton cold case. Violence has increased over the years in Springfield, but even if something like this were to happen today, I think it would be somewhat surprising, the seemingly random nature of it. Back in the early 90s, for a shooting like this to take place, somebody who's just driving to work in the morning, I mean, that in and of itself seems very surprising, is it not?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And back then, like you said, there wasn't as much crime. It was about a year after the Springfield 3 case, and so there was that, but they actually investigated the fact that could be related in some way, but that was ruled out. My dad's case was not any way related, as far as investigators believe, to the Springfield 3. But just an early morning drive to work, and it feels so random, right? And in today's standards, it still might be unsolved, just due to the fact that there's such a lack of evidence in the case. There was no DNA, there was no weapon, there's no witnesses. It was such a random thing, and that's another reason I wrote the book, right? I'm trying to appeal to people, especially in the Springfield area, that potentially might know something, because I feel like in my heart that that's what it's going to take, is somebody to come forward.
Did Did police at the time, or just as time has gone on, did they develop any theories as to what may have happened, or think at some point there was a suspect or person of interest?
Yes, and in my book, I described the police came up with, and also that we, the family, came up with. And yes, there were several theories. There was also a photograph retrieved from a local, like a nearby convenience store, showing a gentleman that had been in there about the time, just before my dad's murder. And to my knowledge, they haven't spoken to this. They don't. They never found who this was. So yes, there was somebody there that, it was not that he was a person of interest as much as he was just someone in the area.
Right.
When there were very few people in the area at that time of morning, right, that he might have seen something.
We're talking with our author of the week, Tricia Miller. The book is All That I Am, a daughter's take on the Frank Stanton cold case. Are there aspects of the investigation that you felt maybe were off track? How much of this do you think is left unsolved because just of the sheer nature of it and lack of evidence, versus maybe just disagreements or questioning the investigation itself?
I would say that the investigation early to a rookie investigator. Potentially, this might have been her very first homicide to investigate, and so that had us scratching our heads, like why, and the Springfield Police Department has been, for the most part, very cooperative and very cordial to us. It's actually, the case has been assigned. There's a new cold case unit, thankfully, at the Springfield Police Department, set up just a little over a year ago. For the very first time, Springfield PD now has a cold case unit. And there are investigators actually looking at my dad's case now. So that's refreshing, right? But you can't go back to those early days of the investigation and change the things that could have been discoverable back then, right?
Has there been any communication with you in which they say, well, we have fresh eyes and here's something that we didn't think was significant at the time, but now we do see it as significant? Has there been any communication that there's any sign that, oh, well, maybe because of this fresh view of it, they're seeing something that they didn't see before?
Well, let me say this. I have pestered the Springfield PD. They've not reached out to me very often, but I reach out to them periodically. And I will say that there has been a little, I don't know how much I can say, but there has been some information brought to light lately, not because of the case, but because of somebody coming forward that has them looking at it a little harder. Okay. So that's encouraging too, right? To say that it's at the top of their list of, priorities, no, but I do think that they are working hard to, they want to see this case solved as much as I do.
Now you mentioned,
well, maybe not that much.
Well, I don't understand. Well, you mentioned that the police had their theory. You say that the book also is about your family's theories. So that suggests to me that perhaps you have some thoughts that differ from law enforcement as to who was behind this murder of your father.
Yes. Well, actually, I'm not absolutely certain that our theories differ, just due to the fact that the Springfield Police Department has not shared anything with me, my dad's case file, because it is still technically an open case. It's cold, but it's open, right? And so they can't share details of his files with me. I've not laid eyes on any part of his files, so, or ears, right? They haven't shared any of that. So for me to say that my theories differ from theirs, in conversations, they're aware. They are absolutely aware of my theories. I sent a copy of my book as soon as it was published to the detective there, and they know my theories, and I think I feel like they probably have similar theories, but there may be more there that they know that I don't know.
We are talking with our author of the week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone, Tricia Miller. The book is All That I Am, A Daughter's Take on the Frank Stanton Cold Case. And I should mention that there is, for readers, there's also a subplot that adds an additional element to the overall book. And before I do let you go, is there anything else about the book you want people to know? And I know that there was an excerpt that you wanted to share with us also.
Yes, and but first and foremost, Nick, I want to say thank you to you, to Sarah, and to KSGF for allowing me this opportunity, and ABC Books, right? So I want to mention the book again. It's called All That I Am: A Daughter's Take on the Frank Stanton Cold Case. I do have a Facebook page that people who are interested can go and follow. It is, if you just search on Facebook for Justice for Frank Stanton, you can follow me there and not follow me, but follow my dad's story there, right? But yes, I do have an excerpt that I'd like to read, and I want to explain where the title comes from,
please.
if that's okay. So my dad wrote a letter to my mother. I'm almost certain it was the very last letter that he wrote. And in his closing, he wanted to offer her all that he was. And those were his last words, all that I am. And so I'm going to read an excerpt. I'm going to try not to cry. This is page 72 of the book. If the person who pulled the trigger on June 10th, 1993, that took my dad, Franklin Harrison Stanton, from those of us who loved him, happens to read this book, I hope that you will feel convicted right this very moment as you're reading these very words. We deserve to know. My dad deserves justice in place of a cold case number. I beg you, please say something. If you know anything at all about who did this to my dad, do the right thing. I beg you with all that I am.
Our author of the week, Tricia Miller, thank you so much for sharing with us. And of course, any updates that come along, please reach out so we can revisit this. Again, the book, All That I Am, A Daughter's Take on the Frank Stanton Cold Case. Author of the week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. For Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Tomorrow's Friday, so we will be broadcasting live from Scramblers. KSGF.com. You can get registered to win tickets before you can buy them to see Legendary Sticks with special guest Kevin Cronin of REO Speedwagon at Thunder Ridge Nature Arena Saturday, June 7th. Those tickets go on sale 10 a.m. tomorrow, but again, you can get registered to buy or to win them before you can buy them. I know we were so busy yesterday, we didn't get an update. Or did we get an update on trees for Santa's Angels?
No, I
Okay.
haven't called them yet. But the last update that we had was that there was 7 kiddos left at Pinnaker Chevrolet in Republic and 7 at A1 Custom Car Care in Republic. But I do also need to stress that we need to start getting those gifts in because the final day for gift drop-off is on Tuesday, December 17th.
All right, so that would be next Tuesday.
Correct.
And also, when we had Trudy from KVC here, she noted that if you also do have wrapping paper or scissors or tape or they can take some of those donations as well. They wrap all the presents. And so, of course, they go through a lot of that and have a need for a lot of it. So if you haven't adopted yet, I don't know, honestly, how many are left on the trees at those 2 locations on 60 and Republic. But hopefully we'll get all those adopted out. And then hopefully, even before the deadline, you all will be able to get those gifts in. I know probably a lot of you are going to be planning on doing the old Christmas shopping this weekend for your adopted kid or kids, and that means Monday you'll bring that in. That's cool. And then a final reminder, can't stress this enough, if you grabbed a kid or kids off the tree and something has happened that is going to make it impossible for you to follow through and get the gifts for the kid or kids, please just bring that ornament with the kid's information here by the station, or take it back and put it back on the tree. That way we can make sure we will be able to make sure they're taken care of. But if we don't know that you're not going to be able to follow through, then we won't be able to take care of that. And so anyway, our number one goal is just to make sure all the kids are taken care of. Also, KSGF.com, bouncing back to that, there is sponsored by Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air, Christmas in the Ozarks. You get a listing of all the area Christmas events, light displays, where to see Santa, and so forth. And when you're out and about, if you happen to stop by Macadoodles or Price Cutter on the shelves, this season, Bradford Light from Kansas Territory Brewing Company, tailored for the hardworking men and women who appreciate the reliable, easy drinking experience. 3.8%. No bull, just beer. Among their other offerings, that is one that is available in the Macadoodles again, and Price Cutters through the area. Bradford Light from Kansas Territory Brewing.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 57. Tonight cloudy with a low around 36. For your Friday, mostly cloudy with a high near 53. And on Saturday, showers mainly before noon with a high near 56. And when it comes to winter weather, it can be pretty brutal on your roof. Right now we're seeing a lot of fluctuating temperatures, and that can actually lead to nail pops. And if nail pops are not addressed with scheduled routine maintenance, that can actually allow for moisture to get underneath your shingles, and that could eventually lead to deck rot and eventually leaks. So if you want to get ahead of those roof repairs before winter hits, go ahead and give Josh over at the Pyramid Roofing Company a call. Now, the Pyramid team, they offer free roof inspections, so you're not out anything whenever you call them. And if you do need repairs or even a whole new roof, they're going to work through that insurance process without making you sign anything. So whether you need a whole new roof or just a simple roof repair, the Pyramid Roofing Company team, they will get you all taken care of. Now you can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
One of the larger problems that we have in terms of roadblock to fixing problems is this human I don't know, I guess it's a standard reaction to change. Human beings are weird in the sense that so often we are contradictions. We recognize there's a problem, but the minute you say, okay, well, we need to do things differently, no, you can't do that, you can't do that. Well, then you're going to get the same outcome. And there are certain recognitions that we have in this country in which we refuse to do anything or even to entertain doing anything differently in order to fix them. And one of those has to do with Social Security. Everybody acknowledges, everyone knows Social Security as it exists cannot continue to exist. It is going to run out. There's no one, when you look at the numbers, no one that disputes this. It's also set up like a pyramid scheme. If any private industry set up a system, an investment system, like the government has with Social Security, and they were caught, they would be thrown in prison. And there's a reason for that, because those models are made illegal in our market system because they are completely unsustainable, because they don't work. Yet only our government would recognize in the free market, here is a system that is illegal because it is a ripoff. Oh, but we're going to use that exact same model for your retirement. I want to read to you a story that is Fox 4, Kansas City. Missouri Congressman's comments on Medicare Social Security cuts raise questions. One local nonprofit says it's alarmed following comments from a Missouri congressman suggesting cuts to Medicare and Social Security. During a Fox Business interview on Monday, Congressman Mark Alford also suggested pushing back the retirement age. Quote, and so we've got to right the ship, and it's going to mean cuts. It's also going to mean looking long-term at the front end of some programs like Social Security and Medicare, not taking anyone off of what they paid into so far, but there is some waste, abuse, and fraud in Medicare that we can take those numbers back, Alford said. The congressman also made a comment suggesting the U.S. pushes back the retirement age, quote, and on the front end of Social Security, I think there's a way when people are living longer, they're retiring later, that on the front end we can move the retirement age back a little, he said. Fox 4 initially hoped to talk to Alford earlier Tuesday at 4:45 p.m. so we could better understand what he was saying, though seems pretty clear. But when we get closer to that time, or when we got closer to that time, Fox 4 was told he was no longer available. We reached out again multiple times via text and phone call and asked for a statement. At this time, we've not received any response. Janet Baker, who's the executive director of KC Shepherd Center, the organization that exclusively serves seniors in Kansas City, she was less than pleased with the comments. Quote, it's alarming to me, and here's why. Yes, people are living longer, but the reality is ageism is real, and it's already difficult for anyone over the age of 50 to find a job. Now you're going to ask them to continue to work into their 60s, late 60s, and early 70s? She says she agrees with the congressman in terms of stopping waste, abuse, and fraud regarding the benefits, but Baker says going after these entities without provable evidence will hurt places like Kansas City, where issues like hunger for seniors are twice the national average. Quote, you're squeezing the bubble by taking it out of the hides of the vulnerable, low-income seniors and putting it on the backs of small organizations like KC Shepherd Center. Seniors are the most horrifically, grossly underfunded population that there is, she said. Baker also said any suggestion of cutting an already underfunded population is morally wrong. And then there's a link to KC Shepherd Center's website if you want to help them financially, I guess, and that is in the news story. Now, so this entire, again, approach is part of the reason that these problems don't get fixed, is because no answer, even a suggestion at an answer, is ever accepted as even something that can be discussed. Here is, this is a program, and again, as I mentioned before, this format is something that has been made illegal in the private sector because it is a ripoff, because it's unsustainable. This is a program that, when it was developed, the life expectancy was not even the what was considered the retirement age for purposes of Social Security. So in other words, people weren't even expected to live long enough to get this. The premise in terms of the payout was that if you live beyond what you are expected to live, then you're going to be able to tap into this. It was essentially meant to provide financial assistance to people who weren't even supposed to be alive anymore. I mean, that's how it was set up. So it was sort of a safety net in case you lived beyond what you had prepared to live. And some of that was based off the idea that people would save or take care of their own families. And so it was based off this idea that you have your life set up until you're dead. But what happens if you live beyond that? What happens if you live beyond the point in time in which you are actually expected to live? Okay, in that case, we will go ahead and have this fund here that will pay you in those very final days of your life, should you live beyond life expectancy. It's also part of the reason that the unsustainable nature, structurally speaking, was considered to be a safe gamble, because rarely were people actually going to be tapping into this in any sort of meaningful way. Well, we've shifted from that to using that same unsustainable system for a population in which people are assumed, not a rarity that they'll tap into it, but assume that they will tap into it for maybe 30 freaking years in some instances, with the way that people's life expectancies are going well beyond what they did once upon a time. So, number one, the idea, which to me seems to be perfectly reasonable and to make sense, that you get it back to where it was initially intended to be, or at least close to it. Not even talking about, I think arguably you could go to that original intent of life expectancy, but even if you don't want to do that, anytime anybody even talks about 6 months or a year, people go apoplectic over it. And they act like old people are going to be thrown into the streets. Elderly people, you have this over-the-top rhetoric. All of a sudden, elderly people are the most underfunded, abused people in the history of the world, and if that Social Security check isn't there, then that means that they are going to be living, life in the gutter or die early. And I don't want anyone to misunderstand me. I know a lot of you listening right now are dependent on Social Security payment. I understand all of this. I'm not here to claim that it isn't relied upon. Now, how much it is we've been conditioned to rely upon it is a whole nother story. But the point is, this is a ship that is sinking. Everyone acknowledges that it is sinking. But anytime anyone says, okay, here's a possible solution to stop the ship from sinking, there is a chorus of people that say, no, you can't do that. I have yet to hear any of these individuals offer any sort of even unreasonable approach to how it is that this problem can be solved. Whenever there is discussion also about putting that retirement age out a bit, generally it's talking about people that haven't even gotten into the system yet. So, the argument about, well, I've paid in my whole life and I should be getting this. That formula doesn't work anyway. But even aside from that, these new potential rule changes that sometimes get floated aren't even applying to people who have paid into the system all of this time. But I just, it is, I get why it is that these problems don't get fixed. And it's because anytime somebody like Congressman Alfred here, who puts out an absolutely reasonable potential to say, let's talk about what this would look like, you have immediately, they act as if he proposed euthanasia for anyone who is 9 months past the expiration date of a human life. This is a perfectly reasonable response, but even the verbiage in the news story, we hope to talk to him so we could better understand what on earth he's talking about. This isn't that difficult of a concept, and it's a perfectly reasonable one at that. I've used this analogy before, but I think it's so appropriate. The Gordon Ramsay show, I don't know if they still make new episodes or not, where people who run a restaurant that is going into the ground and that everyone that owns the restaurant and works at the restaurant recognizes that if there is not help, they are going to have to close their doors. And so they reach out to Gordon Ramsay, please come help us. We need help. Without your help, we're going to cease to exist. And he comes along and he evaluates, he sees what the problem is, he recognizes the strengths and the weaknesses, and he says, all right, here's what has to be done in order to fix it. And there is inevitably people who either work there or run or own the place who are the first ones to say, no, you can't do that. And their answer for everything is, well, we have to do it this way because that's the way we've always done it. Which is exactly why you're in the position you're in the first place, and you yourself recognize that the ship is sinking. It's being run into the ground. We cannot live in a world where on one hand we say, yes, we see that the way we are dealing with this particular situation, the way we're funding it, the way it's structured, you take in the population, the life expectancy of people, that is without question, that is not something that can be sustained and it's going to go away. But then at the same time say, well, we cannot change the way we do it. Because if you do not change the way that you, quote, do it, then you are not going to change the outcome, which is it's going to go away. And for all the characterizations of what is morally or what is immoral, that is the immoral position, because it is sacrificing the program in its entirety because of an unwillingness to make what some people would call difficult decisions. That is where the immoral component comes into play. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. So there's a story about a story that is, again, a reflection of the media and their priorities and how it is that their biases inhibit their ability to report what is relevant and significant. And bias comes into play in a couple of different ways. I mean, you can have people that see themselves as activists and they're just brazenly attempting to get you to believe what it is that they feel you need to believe on a particular issue or when it comes to a candidate. But there's also just this idea of, but what is important? What is news? And this has come about because there was apparently a story being prepared that was claiming Pete Hegseth was never accepted into the U.S. Military Academy, West Point, rather. And it was ProPublica, which is left wing. It's a source of news for a lot of people. And essentially, what had happened and what led them to even believe that there was a story here, I don't know. But they had received not once but twice confirmation from somebody at West Point that he had never even applied there. Well, apparently Hegseth, and I'm guessing, because somebody reached out to get comment on it from him or his people, and they not only noted that that wasn't true, but provided proof that it wasn't true, that he had in fact been accepted there, and he got out ahead of it and got the word out there that this disinformation campaign was coming out of West Point. And so ProPublica didn't do the story. You think, okay, well, that makes sense. The problem is, and this is what a lot of people are asking, somewhat rhetorically, why aren't they doing a story about the fact that West Point is putting out disinformation, not once but twice, about somebody who is up for a position in the upcoming administration? I mean, that's a pretty big story. But it isn't to the people at ProPublica. And some of this may be deliberate. It may be overt. It may be that, we're out to make Trump look bad. We're out to sabotage his efforts. And, well, okay, the story that we were working on in an effort to do that didn't have truth behind it. And so let's move on to something else. It could also just be that inherent lack of understanding what really is important because of their biases, to where it never even crosses their mind that the fact that here you have someone within the U.S. military that is deliberately providing disinformation to the media in order to sabotage a nominee of the incoming president of the United States. The fact that to them that apparently does not seem like it's newsworthy. You've got Daily Wire covering the story, noting that Hegseth scooped ProPublica, which was preparing to publish the story about his supposedly lying about getting into West Point. After Hegseth posted a photo of his acceptance letter, ProPublica said West Point's public relations office told them twice on the record that Hegseth never even applied to the academy. However, after Hegseth sent the outlet his acceptance letter, ProPublica ignored the story. So quickly, some online questioned why ProPublica did not publish the story about West Point, giving them false info. West Point was also criticized for what the academy called a, quote, error. Tom Cotton, Republican Arkansas, posted officials at the U.S. Military Academy should not be feeding lies to left-wing reporters about President Trump's nominees. West Point needs to thoroughly investigate the egregiously bad judgment and potential violation of the Privacy Act immediately. Cotton published a photo of a letter he sent to West Point Superintendent Lieutenant General Stephen Gillen. The letter asked the leader to look into the matter, noting that it was likely a violation of the Privacy Act of 1974 for such false information to be divulged to a media outlet. Vice President-elect J.D. Vance criticized the journalist for failing to report on the actual story. Quote, "You were misled by a bureaucrat. That's actually a story, just not the one you wanted to print. The effort to tank Hegseth's nomination is one of the most coordinated smear campaigns I've ever seen in D.C. And it once again shows the deep state in play." And at the same time, it validates what the left, the media, the Democrats have tried to portray as Trump's paranoia just out to try to get political enemies, that in fact, what he has said and what many of his supporters have recognized for some time, it's true. That you have people within the government that have tried to before, tried to during his campaign, and tried to now that he got elected to sabotage what it is that he's been elected to do as president of the United States. This is something that, particularly given we're talking about the military and we're talking about a past and soon to be upcoming commander-in-chief, should come with some form of severe punishment. But I think we've all become accustomed to the fact that if it's Donald Trump or anyone who isn't a Democrat that people within the government are trying to sabotage, not only do they not get punished, but oftentimes they get promotions. Ask the killer of Ashley Babbitt. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Left-wing fundraising giant Act Blue has reportedly admitted to Congress that it was still accepting foreign gift card donations as recently as September, a significant development in an ongoing investigation into whether U.S. foreign adversaries such as China, Russia, Iran, Venezuela were influencing or attempting to influence the election by dumping illicit funds into the campaign coffers of Democrat candidates. According to Just the News, Act Blue disclosed that it updated the platform's policies on September 9th to automatically reject donations that use foreign prepaid gift cards. Domestic gift cards are from high-risk sanctioned countries and have the highest level of risk as determined. The change occurred just 3 days after the introduction of the secure handling of Internet electronic donations and so forth. Now, this should be no-brainer stuff. It is illegal for people that are in foreign countries, that are foreigners, to donate to federal candidates. And it's something that Democrats managed to constantly find their way around. This became a real issue during the Clinton years, specifically from China. But the problem is here, once again, one, apparently it's okay for foreign entities to try and influence presidential elections in America as long as it's supporting Democrats. But secondly, this is another one of those instances in which no one is going to be punished. And the Democrats have learned that all you have to do is say, oopsie daisies, it was a mistake, don't worry, we updated things, and they'll be perfectly fine. At best, there will be some sort of financial fine. But that's just the cost of doing business. See you at Scramblers tomorrow. Glenn Beck's next. I'm Nick Reed.